So welcome to the first episode ever of Two Generations.
One mic. My name is Andreina, aka Andy, and I am a 36-year-old beauty business owner. And I have ADHD, full disclosure, so sometimes I drift out of conversations. My husband here keeps me on track, so if I drift out, I apologize. And this is my trophy husband.
Well, it's fifth place, but who's counting? So the difference is, you say your name is, actually it's Andreina, but nobody can pronounce it. That's why I always tell my friends, just call her Andy, because nobody can actually say your name, which is Italian. Your father was from Milan.
Well, I'm a citizen of the world.
Right.
I'm
but
Mexican, Italian, Spanish, American now.
Andreina is actually that. But also no one can figure out your accent. We've been together for 12 years, married for 10.
Yes.
And no one can ever figure out your accent. All my friends are like, they actually said, is she Russian?
Yes, I'm a mail order bride. He bought me on the eBay. Tell them the truth.
Yes. I said, no, she's not a mail order bride. If they are, I'm going to have to find out if there's like a return policy.
Oh, fuck off.
And see what that is. So what we thought would be interesting was, so my name is Mark. I've spent 80% of my career in television, music, and radio. I'm actually in the Texas Radio Hall of Fame, San Antonio, Texas Radio Hall of Fame. So I've been doing this a long time. I'm still a voice actor nationwide. And it's been a long time, though, since I've actually had a show and been on a show. But we thought, what could we do now that could appeal to a lot of different people? And it is a generational thing. You know, we're 25 years apart generationally. So you
Boomer.
I'm the Gen X boomerish.
Babe, you're a boomer.
I'm right on the cusp.
You're still a
My
boomer.
age, I'm 61, but it's literally on the cusp of being
Still
Gen
a
X.
boomer.
So, and she is millennial.
Yes, I am. And sometimes there's some topics that we really agree on, but most of the times we really don't because of that generational gap. And I really think it's not your fault. I always tell you, it's not your fault. That's the way you were raised and the way you grew up. But yeah, so this first episode, we're going to talk about something very interesting because as long as we are here right now in the U.S., we also live in Madrid, Spain, half of the year.
We've been there for 6 years now as residents, and you have your citizenship, and I'm a legal resident of Spain and thereby the EU. We can live anywhere in the EU we want to, but we've lived in Madrid for the last 6 years.
Yeah. And we have a lot of friends that are asking us right now, how can they move out of the U.S., which is it's a fun thought, right? Process. And when you're ready to be like, oh, I want to get out of the U.S., yes, but are you ready to do that? Because for us, when we did it, it was just, I think we were in LA back in the day, and we just came back from Europe and we said, oh man, I wish we could live in Europe. And we just put in some paperwork and we were approved. And now we had 3 months to actually go there. So it was like 3 months to not even really think about we have to go now. We have to go now. And that's what we did. We carried with mom, the puppies, the cat, and off to Madrid, Spain.
And we knew nothing about living there. We had no friends that lived there. No one could guide us like we're trying to do now. So we just kind of have a shot in the dark. We just kind of picked, we thought, oh, it sounds good. We should be in the center of the city where the action is. That sounded good on paper. It did not work out.
Honestly, it was Google. I blame Google because when you ask Google, what's the best part of town to live? It was iffy because they said, oh, yeah, downtown. Yeah, but downtown is full of like young people, which is fine. If you're 19, you enjoy life in there. It's very noisy. It's busy. And we had a little bit of a whorehouse underneath our apartment when we moved there. So
yeah, one of the things we didn't know was that prostitution is legal there.
Decriminalized.
Well, decriminalized, legal, roughly the same thing.
Potato.
So we actually had a brothel that was below our apartment in our building. So I cannot tell you how many nights that Andy would get up and scream at the intercom because drunk man at 3 a.m. would ring the wrong buzzer trying to get into our apartment instead of the brothel.
Crazy. When I'm telling you, it was crazy. Like, I'm 3 a.m. and people is like, negra, where is that negra? So, what? Who is La Negra and why are you? What's happening? And I honestly thought it was a drug den down there. But then I Googled the actual address and I was like, oh, I see what it is now. It's a brothel.
Yeah, so we got out of there. We moved to the best part of town, which is very nice. We've been there ever since. We love it. But the main thing that we brought this up now is that since the election, whatever side you were on, I've had so many friends reach out to me privately, direct messages, whatever. They know we live in Europe, and they're like, how do we get out of here? We seriously want to have an option. And I think that it's nice to have that option, but you have to understand what that entails. It's a radical change of some things that if you're not used to, is very tough, especially in the beginning, because it's very bureaucratic and sometimes for no reason. They're notoriously slow in Europe. They just move very slow.
Well, in the US, there's also bureaucracy. You just don't see it because, it's... When I got my residency here, it was super bureaucratic. When I got my citizenship, it was super bureaucratic too. When I got my social security card and everything else, it's just stuff you guys just take for granted here. But it happens here too. But the main thing for him, I think for you, is the cultural shock differences.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there 6 years now. I absolutely love it. People always say, where's home for you? Because we've lived in Texas and we've lived in LA and we've lived in New York and then Europe. And everybody asks me, where's home for you? And for us, nothing feels like Madrid. I mean, New York is New York. It's very hard to compete with Manhattan. When you're in Manhattan, we lived on the Upper West Side, a block from Central Park, and it's New York City. It's dirty, it's rats, but there's Broadway, and it's amazing. It's 3 times as expensive as everything else, but it's New York City. And that is the premier place to be. But we feel the most calm, the most safest, and like we can relax, and we're home when we're in Madrid. It's a relaxing feeling. My God, we're back home. And so
you say that now until you reach 2 months and you're like, I can't stand these people. I want to go back to America.
Yeah, after 2 months, that's usually generally my limit. We usually do 2 months, 2 months. We just came back from 5 months over there at one straight time, and that was a little much for me. I love Madrid, but the 2 things I do not like about living there, number one is the eating schedule, and you have to get used to that. It's going to kill you because they really don't eat breakfast. Their lunch is 1 to 5.
They have cigarettes and coffee.
Yeah, that's their breakfast, cigarettes and coffee and a pastry. But 1 to 5 is the general population's lunch. That's when the restaurants are open for lunch. And I mean, like 80% of the restaurants don't even open for lunch till like 1:30. And they're open till 5 because people go have long, leisurely lunches with wine or beer.
Because that's la comida. That's like comida. And then you have la cena. Like it's really not.
Right. But they take a nap in between, and then they go back to work till 8 o'clock. And then restaurants are open for dinner from 8 or 8:30 till midnight. And it's weird. I actually have video on our street. First of all, there's more restaurants in Madrid than there are in Manhattan. There's one every 5 steps. They all have terraces outdoors. And they call it living in the streets of Madrid. It's actually exciting. Summertime, the sun is open until midnight or 11 o'clock. It's open. But I have video. If you remember, we took the video. I said it's Friday night at 8 o'clock. Here's a popular restaurant. There's not a soul in the restaurant.
Yeah.
And then 30 minutes later, it's jam-packed at 8:30, which is crazy to me. Americans can't fathom that people don't go out to eat at 7 or 8.
Well, but for me also was a cultural shock when I moved into the U.S. because I am not used to have dinner at 6 p.m. Like also it's not a thing. I think you guys, each country has its own like time schedules, right? But here, I mean, you feel that because you were raised like that and you don't like to adapt to other, like that, for you that's your normal basis, but that's you need to adapt to that. Like that's the way they are and you're not going to change that.
Right. And the other thing is the smoking. That's my number 2 thing. They smoke more in Spain than they do in France, and it's everywhere outside. It's everywhere. We've seen parents smoking with their teenage kids, which is a little weird, but it's just pervasive everywhere. And so you got to get used to that. But, there's other things too, but that's the things I don't like. There are countless things that I love. I could go on, and we'll do a whole episode about that, about the healthcare system. It is by far 100 times better than the American healthcare system. And that's for another episode. But you have to ask yourself, if you're going to want to leave the country, are you going to be able to handle all the differences that come with that and what that entails?
Absolutely. I mean, for us, it's kind of been easier because we always have this gateway to come back, right? When you feel like, oh, I can't handle this anymore. But it's just, I mean, to me, I do miss America too, right? Like I do miss my freedom sometimes. But I love the fact that we have that possibility. But if you can't come back to your hometown, you're going to feel homesick. You feel homesick sometimes.
Mostly because of I miss my sports. It's like you forget there like in Texas to Madrid, it's a 7-hour time difference. Right. It's 7 hours ahead in Madrid. So, NFL football to me is my number one thing I like to watch. And so I don't like having to watch football games at midnight, and we watched the Super Bowl at 2:30 in the morning till 6. So it's that right there is it's very hard because I really want to watch my American sports. I miss my American sports. And everybody's like, oh yeah, but you have soccer. Well, wow. Yeah, we do have Real Madrid. It's a big football team in America there, but yeah, I'm not a big soccer fan. I'm more, American football, American baseball. And so I do kind of miss that aspect of it. And then but everything is a trade-off, like the food, groceries and things like that. It's a trade-off.
You also miss your high fructose corn syrup and your cancerous breakfast pre-made stuff. You miss that.
I miss certain things, because again, there are a lot of things they have a Costco there. Yeah. We have 2 in Madrid. But if you go to Costco, you cannot get the same products you get in America because there's so many things that American food companies put into American food that is illegal in the EU. Mm-hmm. The number one thing being high fructose corn syrup. So look, next time you're at the grocery store, look at the back of most of your things and see how much high fructose corn syrup is in the products that you're eating. What's frustrating is something as simple as like Heinz ketchup. When you get it here, high fructose corn syrup is like the first ingredient. They make the same thing in Europe. It just doesn't have high fructose corn syrup in it. So what that tells me is all these big companies can actually make it.
Yeah, but it's cheaper.
They just choose not to in America.
It's cheaper to kill you.
So they keep giving you stuff that's killing you. They will keep making it in America versus the European things, which are much more clean. Everything is much more clean.
Not as flavorful, though.
It's not as flavorful in something, especially and like the convenience of the grocery store. You go to H-E-B, oh my God, it's like my heaven at H-E-B. I go to grocery stores, I can spend an hour.
Truly, every time we come back, he's like, I'm going back to H-E-B, and he spends like 2 hours there, just like walking down the aisles, like enjoying the actual like variety of foods and cereals.
I
and
like my convenience.
Sodas
I like to have my wine tastings while I'm there. It's a whole experience for me. And I know you always make fun of me, like, do you have to make friends with all the new employees that you don't know? I like to talk to people.
Because you're chatty Cathy.
Because I'm originally from Texas, and Texas people talk to people. That's just what you do. So I love my H-E-B, and I miss that. Now, the trade-offs there is the food isn't as clean. You're going to eat cleaner. You're going to eat healthier there. You're going to eat cheaper there. When we get our bread in our neighborhood, we have 15 small bakeries on our block. So we're going to get a hot loaf of a baguette for 65 cents, 75 cents. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
So you go to the grocery store that you only get what you can carry and walk back
because also the fridge is small, right? Like there's no double side door fridges. There's no extra freezer in the garage or the basement. So there's only so much you can fit. And for us that are a family of 3, which is me, Mark, and my mom that lives with us, is sometimes it gets complicated because, well, number one, also the food doesn't last as long.
No, there's not all the preservatives that they put in it.
So if you're gonna you cannot really plan your whole week's meal because otherwise, well, first of all, you can't carry it, no, right? Because grocery stores are like you walk there, and then there's only so much you can carry in your carrito, which I call like the little
Hand cart.
shopping cart, and also some places don't have elevators, so you have to bring that upstairs, like by hand. So
Right, but also you're also trading off, like I said, the good quality food, but the prices. I've seen, especially this year, everybody was talking about the high price of this, the high price of that, high price of this. We never really saw that too much in Spain, and a little bit, but not much. And you can still, to this day, we have friends that live in France, and they laugh. They said, "You Americans always spend way too much money for alcohol." And I see that because we can go to our grocery store, and I can buy 3-4 bottles of really good Spanish wine and pay like $15 for 3 bottles of amazing wine.
I know that is true.
Yeah, so it's here. Everything is so much more expensive when it comes to alcohol, and all the taxes and everything comes out, and also where you can buy it, and by every state. Over there, we buy full-blown alcohol in grocery stores 7 days a week. And so you want a bottle of vodka, you just buy it at the grocery store or whatever you're looking for.
Yeah.
So there's not all that. There's also a million vacation days in Spain. The average person.
Well, in Europe in general.
Yeah, but in Spain, we know from living there. So, for example, like you don't tip. That's the other thing. You don't really tip. You may want to give $1 or something like that.
Well, if the service was really excelling,
but
right?
you don't tip like Americans. And they always laugh when they see Americans coming because Americans don't realize that. So they're tipping way too much money in Europe because they don't understand, because they're used to the tipping culture in America
Well, because
here.
tipping culture in America is going out of hand.
Well, it's way expensive because they also have to live because they don't pay them any money. They're all working on tips. They're all working for tips in America.
Yeah, but people just here expect a tip just to say hi to you.
Well, but again, they don't get paid by their employer. That's the problem. And they have no benefits, most of them. But in Europe, every waitstaff person, bar, waitstaff, manager, all the employees, everyone, they're on full-time salaries.
Yeah. Not a lot, because the minimum wage is not that much,
but they're on full-time salaries. They get full health care for free as part of their taxes that they pay.
As part of the Social
Security system. Yeah, their Social Security system, they pay 27% in taxes, which covers all of their health care and their medicines. And also
paid. How you call that when they get sick? They get paid those days.
Yeah,
doesn't
you
matter
get
how
sick
many
pay,
days.
things like that. You get disability, sick
Yeah.
pay. They get 45 paid holidays a year, and they get one.
You get a full month of if you get 2.5 days of vacation for every month you work.
Right.
So plus all the long weekends they have, because they have a million holidays.
Right. It's like 45 paid holidays, 30 days paid vacation. They also have college that they get as part of their Social Security system.
That is true.
So there's a lot of benefits to that for them. So the tipping thing, you don't need to tip them. And they're used to working. And again, it's just a different vibe there. And they're not so worried about everything. Their concern is more like they're worried about terrorism. They're not worried about crime. Like Madrid, the crime rate is like guns are illegal. There's no violent crime there other than pickpockets here and there for tourists. But there's no violent crime, and it's a very safe environment. That's why we feel safe there. And we walk everywhere. We walk 5 to 7 miles a day in Madrid because the city is much more like Manhattan. You walk it. You're walking everywhere, and so you're exercising just walking around.
That is true. Like a thing that people don't realize is like how here, especially like not New York, right? Because New York, we walked everywhere, but in places like here in Texas, like even if the place is so close, there's not a sidewalk to get there. So even if it's like a quarter mile, you need to get in the car and drive there. And that's when some people from Europe come here, they're like, oh, we don't need a car, we'll walk. Like, no, you can't walk because there's not even a sidewalk, or if there's a sidewalk, you may have to fight some homeless people in the process, but it's just not a walkable city. In getting there, people don't really need a car, right? Because the public transportation is amazing everywhere else. Like most bigger cities in the world, first world countries, the transportation, you really need to get yourself used to use the public transportation. Mm-hmm. And realize that it's a very neighborhood thing, right? Like everything is in your neighborhood, and you don't go outside of your neighborhood much to do stuff. You will never go to a gym that is 35 minutes away unless you have a car and you live in suburbia, I guess. But
Right.
it's a different lifestyle.
Yeah, it's definitely a walking city, and you do things in your neighborhood. It's much more community, but it's international people you meet. I've never had so many Venezuelan friends in my life because we have a million of them living on our street.
So they're all coming now to Spain.
A lot of people from a lot of South American
Yes.
countries are coming to Spain, and all over the world. We have friends all over the world on our street that we're good friends with and that we know. And you meet so many different people, and you see so many different cultures of people, and everybody's generally really, really nice. And so I think overall, we've talked about this, is do you want to make this commitment? I think people right now, they're freaking out about the election if their side didn't win, and they're thinking, oh, I got to get something different. I got to get out of here. But you really have to think about, like, analyze what that means. Can you afford to test it a little bit like we did, where you live half the year there, half the year here? You're not making a full commitment. Can you afford to do that? How do you technically do that? Now, we can do a whole thing on like the actual mechanics of doing that, and you can also message us
Yeah,
if you'd
if you
like
guys
to
are
do that.
interested in really moving out, like we can actually guide you. And even I have a good immigration lawyer if that's what you want to do. And Spain is a really great place to go because it's very easy to get a non-working visa there, that if you have money from the US and you're working remote or something, you can absolutely like get a really easy approval. But are you really, like I said, like for Americans, like my husband, it's complicated, right? Like little things here and there that irritate him, that he has to I don't know how to say it. He has to comply with, right? Like ice in beverages. That's not really a thing. When he asks for ice in his beverage, it's one ice, and he's like, "No, can you bring me more ice?" They put two. He's like, "No, like bring me more ice.
Yeah, bring me a glass of ice.
Give me a glass of ice." They're like, "What? Like, what are you talking about? Like coffee?" Like it's the tiniest cup
or
of
like
coffee.
Coca-Cola. You know, they just naturally put a lemon in everybody's Coca-Cola. And I'm like, why would you take the #1 product that sells in the world and change the taste?
Because they like it.
Well, that's fine, but don't just assume. So I always have to ask, sin lemon. So no lemon, please. But that's
Right.
just weird to me.
But those things that irritate you, like it irritates you, like sometimes that people are out very late and they're coming back home, like, I mean, I guess it's the age now, but like when young kids are coming, we're walking the puppies at 7 a.m. and there's people just going back home from the bar the night before.
Well, yeah, because a lot of the discos, I call them discos. They still call them discos there. So a lot of the clubs and such open at 1 o'clock in the morning and close at 7. So like you have people stumbling back home at 7 in the morning on a weeknight from the clubs. A lot of younger people, but it's just still crazy to see. But again, since this is the first episode, we'd like you to please like and subscribe, follow us, and send us messages, send us comments
And
of questions
questions.
you have. We'd love to respond back to you and tell you everything that we know from our experience of actually living it. So, and that's the big difference. We see so many times in America, there's so many people, especially if they just watch some news program and they think they know everything about it. And they just, especially healthcare, oh, it's socialism. You don't even know what you're talking about. You have no concept of what you're talking about. You're just mimicking what you've heard on some news program. So you really need to talk to people that live there and can tell you what the actual real deal is about those things. And again, the easiest way to get in there right now, there's a digital nomad visa, and the other, that's the two easiest ways: the digital nomad visa and the I call it the non-working visa, where you just say, I make my money in the U.S. I don't need your Social Security system. I don't need your money.
I'm not going to bleed your
I'm
system.
not going to bleed your system or ride on your systems. I get all my money from the U.S., and here's my documentation. And that's the easiest way. That's how we started living there. And then after a couple of years, we switched that to working visas. And then you got your citizenship there. I can get mine too once I can pass the written test. And although I hablo un poquito español,
No, you don't.
Yeah, no pasa nada
You
para
don't
comer,
speak Spanish.
para vivir. So
He
I get enough.
swears you speak Spanish.
I speak enough Spanish to eat and drink with no problems. I have no problem doing that. Now, what happens, or the problem is they hear me speaking English, or they see me and they want to ask me directions. And then I'm like, okay, slow down. Or written Spanish is my bigger problem. I don't read enough Spanish, especially on a test, that I can pass that citizenship test yet. There are two things that I don't have a problem with in Spain, like if someone's going to speak to me in Spanish, that I always get you to translate. Number one is any health-related things at the medical facilities, you're going to make sure, so I don't mishear a word and I don't know what I'm doing. So that's
that's it.
That's
probably health.
No, there's another one. I can't remember what the hell.
Business, maybe money.
Yeah, when it comes to money, just so we understand exactly the bureaucracy of the money.
Oh my gosh! Speaking of money, in Spain, banks are just nonsense. That's a thing.
Yeah, you have to get used to that. It's very frustrating.
And what we've heard is not only in Spain, a lot of places in Europe is that so your bank, not to get a bank account open, that's a process. And then once you have a bank account open, then sometimes you can't even go to the bank teller and say, hey, I need this. No, that only can happen from Tuesday and Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So if you miss a window there, you're fucked, because at the end you can't really talk to a person and help you with some payment of some whatever. They send you to the little ATM and figure it out, which I that's crazy. Like when we got there, like we could not open a bank account because they were like, okay, but where's your money coming from? I'm like, I don't know, the US. It's like, yeah, but how? I'm like, I don't know. I work there. I have a business. I have a beauty business, international beauty business, that the money comes there and I just transfer it here. Yeah, but how do we know you're not like laundering money? I'm like, if I was laundering money, it would not be in a bank account.
I know. We'd be bringing in suitcases of cash.
Like,
is what we'd be doing.
Lady, just let me open a bank account, because utilities are paid by a bank account.
Yeah.
They don't take credit cards to pay utilities. Your phone, your internet, your electricity, your water, everything is enrolled into a bank account. So if you don't have a bank account, that's it. You're done.
Yeah, that's one thing that you have to get used to. It's very frustrating in the beginning, because in America, because we're traveling so much, we have everything auto paid. A lot of things through our credit cards, we just auto pay. Attach this, boom, it's paid. We don't have to worry about anything. You cannot do that there.
No. And
because
the first thing when you want I want a cell phone, right? Like I want Wi-Fi. The first thing they ask you is like, do you have a bank account? I'm like, well, no. Sorry, we can't do that. I was like, but they don't want to open a bank account for me. Like, I'm trying my best. Finally, we got it solved. Also, and every time you want to do something, it's in your bank office. You cannot do something even if it's the same
different
bank,
branch. You can't go to a different branch.
You cannot go to a different branch. It has to be with your branch.
Where you signed up.
With the person you sign up with.
Yes.
Like with
so imagine America here. You went to Chase Bank and you met Larry at a location that you went to. You would always have to go to that same location to speak with Larry,
yes.
No matter if you moved to a different side of town or whatever, to get anything done. So that's kind of weird. You have to their banking is different, but a lot of their laws are meant to protect the average person over the corporations. A lot of them are meant to do that. One of the things, speaking of which, is like rent. So we rented our apartment, right? And one of the great things, imagine this in America. When we signed our lease, the lease is good for 5 years, meaning your landlord cannot raise your rent $1 for 5 years. Yeah. Because that's the law there. So because it's to protect the actual tenant versus the business owner. Yeah. It protects the people over the business owners because they value people more than they do business, which is catch-22 sometimes. Us owning
is.
businesses, it's sick. We deal with
Yeah.
both of those things. We deal with both sides of that coin. That can be a problem sometimes, but you just have to navigate that. So again, if you really want to go, send us some messages. We can actually help you, tell you which direction to go to make it easy for you, and then give you the true things of what's good, what's bad in that scenario.
Yeah, and like again, like the first thing you need to really go through is like the bureaucracy, right? Like you really need to be patient, especially when you get there and you need to go get your little resident card, right? Like it's a process. You need to stand in line behind other 300 people. There's no VIP line. Like my husband usually is like, "Where's the VIP line?" There's no VIP line.
Where's the lounge?
Where's the lounge? I have a platinum Amex. Can I get that? No, you can't. You need to wait behind all these people. And then when it's your turn, it's your turn. But yeah, like if you guys have any questions or comments or you really want to move, even if you have kids, education over there is amazing. Education in Europe is absolutely different than here.
Yeah, the other thing, yeah, because they teach them. A lot of Americans only speak their. I know a lot of these in America have been like, "Oh, speak English, speak English." I don't know if you realize that that's your philosophy, but the rest of the world speaks multiple languages, and it's a sign of intelligence generally that you can speak multiple languages. So they teach children multiple languages in the schools. We have a variety of neighbors that are really our neighbors in our building. Our one really good friend is from Spain, obviously speaks Spanish. His wife is French, so he also speaks French. She speaks Spanish, and French. He spent 10 years living in Rome. He also speaks Italian. His wife now speaks Italian. They have 3 kids, and all the kids speak all the languages, and all of them also speak English. So you have that whole family that speaks 4 languages, and that's common in Europe. The neighbors upstairs are from Sweden. They're from Stockholm.
Yeah.
They speak multiple languages.
Yeah.
And, it's a thing that's just generally natural there that people speak multiple languages.
Yeah.
Now, Andy says this all the time that she'll see Americans. We call it the ugly tourist, where you get some Americans that come there and they just demand that, why don't they speak English to me?
Shut up. You're one of those people sometimes like, where's my English menu? There's not a menu in English.
I'm not saying not speak to. I'm just saying we had this discussion this morning. Why don't they have the English menu? And I said, I think that's a bad business decision personally. If you don't have English on your menu, you're missing out on American tourists. You're missing out on UK tourists, which also are huge and spend a ton of money in that country. So being
but I would say the same thing. If I go to Turkey and they don't have a Spanish menu, I'm gonna be like, you're missing on all the people that speak Spanish.
Yeah, but
which
there's
is a
far
lot of
more
people.
Americans and people from the UK that are in Spain than there are Spanish people going to Turkey. It's about business and making money and your available amount of customers. So I'm not saying you have to have that, but I'm just saying you're really limiting your customer base by not also putting English on that
Well, that's
menu.
another episode.
So I think you should. I don't have a problem. I can read a Spanish menu all day long now. I know what it is generally. We had the same issue in Germany. We're in Germany. We had to get translated. We were also eating in a restaurant that was we're in a suburb of Germany. But, because of what we do, we're going to have a lot of stories about things because we travel around the world, all over the world. And us being in Madrid half the year, we can do things that sound really amazing to our American friends, fans, followers, whatever. They sound like, wow, how do you do all that stuff? Because they don't take in consideration of the proximity of everything. So it is nothing for us to... Let's go, like we went to Marrakesh, Morocco for the weekend. It's nothing else let's jump on a plane. Let's go to Paris. Let's go to London. Let's go to Frankfurt. One of the times, because your family roots are in Italy, I said, you know what, let's go to Rome and have dinner. So we flew to Rome and had dinner in Rome and spent the night and came back the next morning.
I did pass out with the humidity and the mask
very
because
hot.
it was
Wonder
COVID
if-
time and I
Yeah.
couldn't breathe. But yeah.
Yeah. So we do a lot of things. We can, hey, let's go to Ibiza for the weekend, or let's go to Ibiza for a couple days, or we can drive to Marbella for
So
4
you say
hours.
until it's full of young people, and you'll be like, "Why are they so noisy? Why are
that's
they
right.
partying until late hours of the night? I want my pool bar." And
I do want all those parties, but I just want the daytime parties. I want the pool party with the music in it, but let's do this at a sensible hour. Let's have a daytime pool party. They do that
from
in Vegas.
9 to noon.
It doesn't have to be 9 a.m., but I mean, let's do something, noon to 3. I'm more, let's have
And
cocktails
then everybody
at
go
happy
back
hour.
home, and that's it. Okay, well, thank you for joining us this time. We're going to keep talking about different topics, and we hope you enjoyed it. And like he said, again, please message us. Any questions you have, we are happy to answer them if we know the answer, of course. And
don't forget to like and follow us, share, and comment, because we want engagement and we want to answer your questions and just have fun.
And we'll see you in the next episode where we're going to talk about healthcare. So see you guys.